Welcome in to SportsSource.tv. I almost forgot what I was going to tell you. It's not the Sports Source, it's SportsSource.tv. This is our overtime segment. Bring it to you most Sundays, and it's brought to you by Blue Smoke Cigar right there. Membership, Blue Smoke Cigar, gets you your own personal cigar locker, although you can also keep the booze, the old bring it yourself. Well, you don't even have to bring it. You can just leave it there in the locker. 15% off Blue Smoke's elite section of fine cigars. They got a great selection at the walk-in humidor. 10% off at McScrooge's Wine and Liquor. There's the booze that you can put in your locker. Access to televisions, HD sets everywhere, lounge area, card tables, golf simulators, and more. It is a great deal if you enjoy smoking a fine cigar. The place to do it, Blue Smoke Cigar, located out in West Knoxville. Get out there and see them. Mike Hicks and the crew, really good folks that have been in this town a long time. Our oldest sponsor.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to have them here on the overtime segment. They've been with us since year 2. We don't have anybody that's been around since year 1, but they were with us in year 2. So thanks to Blue Smoke Cigar. All right, one thing revealed in this week's data dump by Tennessee was the fact that Alabama Athletic Director Greg Byrne sent information and a formula that Alabama uses, that he uses, to grade coaches to John Currie to aid in Tennessee's search. Interesting. Let's go ahead and put up the graphic here. I'll tell you where you can go and see. This is just that's the cover page to the formula, and then you get some of the breakdown to the right there of what it looks like. You can go and see a lot of this stuff at seccountry.com because, Mike, I know you wrote a bunch of it and put a lot of it up there, including some of their findings. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of the results here. Coach efficiency ratings, and what they did was, Mike, what were some of the areas that they graded coaches in? It was like winning percentages.
Championships, time in top 10, recent success. It was an interesting formula that Alabama put together.
And you called me and told me and said it's the kind of geeky stuff you do on the show.
Yeah,
that's cool.
We rank coaches, and yours have been effective. I mean, you had Jeremy Pruitt up there as a candidate.
But it's these, they rank them and everything is weighted. It's like this is 40% and that's 30%. So anyway, it's detailed formula. What they came out with is over the last, this is since 2000, correct?
Correct.
All right, the best coaches that they've seen, and you can get in there twice, as you see with Urban Meyer. All right, his tenure at Ohio State, that's the second best to Nick Saban. But his tenure at Florida was 5th best over this whole run. Pete Carroll was up there, Jim Tressel was up there. If you're looking for Tennessee, Philip Fulmer was at number 25 on their list. Butch Jones was at number 67, and I wonder what his number would have been before last year. Yeah. Now, he didn't have the championships at Tennessee, but he had them in the previous conferences. I wonder what he would, well, they don't count that though. I wonder what his number would look like before that debacle last season took him down. I would love to see where he was. Lane Kiffin in his 1 year was 70. Derek Dooley, 82nd for his 3-year run.
Out of 87 coaches.
He was out of 87 coaches nationally. He was number 82. All right. Now this thing had some findings about Power 5 coaches, assistants and head coaches do better than guys that come up from the lower ranks. You can bring it back to us here. It had, what were some of the other ones, Mike? Guys from the NFL.
The exception.
Yeah, guys from the NFL don't necessarily have a lot of success coming to college except for Pete Carroll. But my question is anyone surprised that Alabama's AD shared this information with Tennessee's AD? Okay.
No. I think that in this, you know, as fans, you get all wrapped up in your school. It's all your school. You think the people at your school are everything in on that. No, they're professionals. And these guys have working relationships, not only around the SEC, around the country. And it doesn't surprise me a bit. I don't think Alabama gave them anything, the keys to the kingdom. I don't think Alabama was going to sit there and say, look, you come down here and get Jeremy Pruitt and we'll do blah, blah. This kind of help, yes, I think people do that because you're sort of comrades in arms at all these places at different levels.
There are only so many ADs.
Yes.
I would
only
agree.
so many ADs at so many schools like Tennessee and Alabama.
We'll talk about the Tennessee-Alabama aspect in a minute. So, Mike, I know that's where you're going to go. Let's hold with that. But just in general, is anybody surprised? Bob's not surprised. I'm not surprised.
I would use the word kind of brotherhood. I think there's the working relationship, and I can see how they would. I'd see how they do it. I'll answer the surprise part later. I mean, I would offer to send it without sending it, but I can see how this would happen.
And remember, Greg Byrne was one of the athletic directors that publicly supported John Currie after he was out at Tennessee. Scott Strickland did at Florida. But yeah, the relationships that athletic directors have to me is very similar to coaches. Coaches often in the offseason get together and share information, even if they compete against each other during the season.
And you see this in the NFL, you see it in the NBA, where a coach will recommend to a rival franchise. And in that, you're not talking about 120 different schools. There's 30 teams, and you're recommending that one of them goes out and hires a guy that you think is really good. You see that all the time. John Harbaugh has been a pain in the butt of the Patriots. Well, guess why the Ravens hired him? It was the recommendation from Bill Belichick. Damn it. So that kind of stuff, I don't think that's the surprise. Now, let's get into the Alabama aspect. A lot of different people, and I think that's the answer here. But who would have ever foreseen that 20 years ago? The feud when Philip Fulmer was the coach, and you had all the you turned us in to clear your own name. Oh no, you're cheaters. Well, no, you're cheaters. All that stuff. I mean, Philip Fulmer had to do an SEC media days like Charlie's Angels. He had to do it on a box down there and via speakerphone. Good morning, Angels. That's how bad
Morning,
it was
Charlie.
because he didn't want to get a subpoena.
And it implies
We're laughing about something that we're not going to into. But anyway.
And as another
Are you
athletic
surprised?
director, you know that John Curry did not have much experience doing this. And he hadn't made a
On a
major
football
hire
coach.
in football. Yeah. And if I'm at Alabama, I'm trying to help somebody out I have a lot of professional respect for. Hey, John, maybe this will help you.
But, Mike, I know your thought on this is the rivalry, there's just no juice left in it.
It's a sign of the times. Do you think that Alabama would have helped Tennessee if Tennessee had won 6 out of the last 11 meetings instead of losing the last 11? No chance. And do you think Philip Fulmer would be calling Nick Saban for advice on coaching help? Did you ever think that would happen? Did you think that a Tennessee graduate who's an agent would convince Philip Fulmer that you don't really need that guy to recruit? Alabama needs him to win a title. That'll really help you out in recruiting. There's just a lot of, and Jeremy Pruitt says, hey, yeah, I'm going to keep talking to Nick Saban. He's a guy that's mentored me. So it's kind of interesting to see how Alabama and Tennessee have become allies, but I think that's a byproduct of the rivalry being lopsided.
Do you think that's it, or do you think possibly, with the exception of Fulmer, it's all new faces?
That's part of it, too.
Yes.
So, I mean, Greg Byrne and John Curry,
Yes.
it's not Mal Moore and Doug Dick, although those guys
It's
probably
not
had a good
former
relationship.
coaches. It's
Yeah.
business people as opposed to coaches.
Okay.
Because I had somebody tell me this.
That's
Do
interesting.
you think Philip Fulmer would send Alabama any help? And I said, no chance.
But he did call Nick Saban for a record. But here's the
Because
thing.
he wants to beat Saban with his own guy.
Well, exactly. And you're going to talk to a guy who you're going to hire somebody off his staff. You're going to ask him.
Yeah.
Saban also recommended Tennessee hire Derek Dooley. So, how much do you believe his recommendations? There's that side of it, too.
And all these analytics may have pointed to Les Miles. Maybe that's what Alabama was trying to do,
his
was
list-
to get you to hire Les Miles.
He was pretty high.
Yes.
Top 10 or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's one of the things I thought.
10 or 12.
Yeah.
It's SECcountry.com. Mike wrote the big piece on it. You can go check it out there. I just think it is interesting from Mike's take that fans, and you mentioned earlier, fans look at that Alabama-Tennessee rivalry and you hate each other. It's not Florida. That's become the new one. But they're going to look at that and say, how do these teams help? Again, we talked in the show a little bit about inside baseball.
Yeah.
This is a little
exactly.
inside
It's the
baseball.
same-
I think
it's
if you're
the
a
same
fan,
thing. Yeah.
you look at that and, they didn't want Dave Hart working here because Bama Dave comes in. This is all a setup. Oh, he
And Jimmy Cheek from Florida.
Yeah, they weaseled their way in. They infiltrated. They're tearing us down from the inside. So if you're someone that believes that kind of shit, you're certainly going to look at this and go, what? And pull your hair out. But the reality is, I think this stuff goes on all the time.
I think it does too.
But Tennessee wouldn't send something like that to Florida.
I wonder if John Curry and Scott Strickland would have.
And
I think they would
I
have.
think
But
it's what are
John
the
Kirk probably would have,
relationships? Yeah, it's
Florida would
it's who
take it
they're
from
talking about.
I want to learn from you.
I don't think Jeremy Foley would have.
Yeah.
No.
But
No.
if you've got a relationship, Strickland, it's about relationships.
Right.
Yeah, so it's about the people, not necessarily the school or,
Yeah,
or
Exactly.
the logo.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
There, that's a good way to sum up our
We
12-minute
just come full
conversation.
circle with Dan Wolken's relationship with John Curry. We're all set.
Well,
Yeah.
All right, let's get back into that for a second because I think you've got a bigger problem with Dan Wolken,
No,
which I think most people out there would agree with you that they believe this is clearly he's a shill. Curry said to do this, so he did it. He's ruined. You seem to dislike Wolken, so give us your take.
I don't dislike Dan at all. I'm just saying that I think it's ironic that of all things that people would accuse him of, it's giving good PR to Tennessee, because when he was in Memphis and he's a Vanderbilt graduate, he's never really given Tennessee good PR in anything. So clearly he must believe.
Where did you go to school, though?
As you pointed this out.
Where did you go to school?
Oh, I went to Michigan State.
Okay, you're big on the graduate makes a difference. What about when Michigan and Michigan State people would say you were a homer because you went to Michigan State? I bet you said, no, I put that aside. And yet you do point out, well, so-and-so went to Florida. Well, so-and-so went to Vanderbilt. To me, that doesn't, I don't.
Well,
put
it
a lot
goes
of
back
weight
to the
in
whole
that.
thing about being a
I
professional.
look at your career. Now, the bigger argument here would seem to be that you're saying for years, Tennessee fans thought he was negative.
Right.
Now they're saying he's positive, and that
Correct.
doesn't jive.
That's ironic.
But the idea that I don't see when he went to Vanderbilt, I don't give a shit.
No, I'm just saying the idea that he would give
Who
positive
cares?
public relations to Tennessee, to me, is a bit outlandish considering
Okay.
his background.
And then I'm kind of, how much difference is one column in USA Today going to make anyway? When you're dealing with something of that magnitude, I need help with PR. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. But this one column in USA Today isn't going to matter diddly squat.
And here's another thing. Everybody got mad at this. Oh, he's saying this. And yet all I ever hear, well, I don't care what people think. Clearly, people do care what people think, because if you ever say a bad word about Tennessee or Colorado or East Manitoba State, you're going to hear from the fans
here's
of
the
Tennessee,
thing,
Colorado, and
get
East
to
Manitoba
the
State.
point of all this, the journalistic stuff Mike's talking. If all you are is negative about a school, or all you are is positive about a school, you're probably not doing your job very well.
Right.
Because you can't go down one road, and if you're a Vanderbilt grad, so I'm not going to write anything positive about Tennessee, you probably ought to be fired at some point if writing about Tennessee is your job and not just something that pops up every once in a while. So I think everybody has to set that stuff aside. I covered Tennessee football for a while when I worked at a different newspaper. The more I covered it, the more I got away from it as somebody who really cared one way or the other. Then when I quit covering it, I got back into caring again.
I went to UT, started this show. They put their coach's show opposite me. They've done some things to try and hurt the show. Yeah, I'm not best friends with them. And yet every week I go home and get emails, you're a homer. Well, then I must be doing my job. Because I'll tell you what's wrong and I'll tell you what's right. And it's going to be all of it this week. They may do some things that are right, some things that are wrong. And I think most of us do that. And I bet Dan Wolken did too. So that's all I just want to make it clear that you're saying fans said that about him. It's not you saying that he was always negative about Tennessee. Or did you think he never wrote anything good about Tennessee?
Well, he was in a position covering Memphis, being Calipari's beat guy, where he was negative about Bruce Pearl.
Boy, okay.
That was part of the job. That was the narrative out of Memphis.
That is again.
But see, that's not part of
That's not part of the damn job.
That's not part
Then
of
he
the
should be
job.
fired.
You've got to report what the coach says when you're the beat guy. You report what the coach says. If you're giving columns and opinions, that's different. But as a beat guy, his job is to report.
You're talking about if he's just giving quotes.
John Calipari, right? John Calipari says this. Memphis thinks that. This game
Well,
doesn't
then how
help
would he-
Memphis.
But
No
that's
one
not a
should've got-
constant negative
That's
campaign.
right.
That's
That's
just
yeah,
like an
that's just
giving
occasional.
quotes.
Yeah, that's just like an occasional
That's just
story.
reporting. That's not being negative, in my opinion.
No, I don't think so either.
I mean, I thought you were talking about columns.
Yes.
And in that
Well, in the
case,
USA Today, I haven't seen him attack Tennessee. So I'm not talking about the USA
because
Today.
there's a huge difference between a column and a news story. I mean,
The news story you just
I'll-
report.
you know.
If I'm just telling you what John Calipari said, that's not negative.
Now,
He's being
on
negative.
Twitter, now that's a different game. If we're going to try and bring Twitter into the journalistic world.
Twitter's the devil. Twitter sucks.
But I'm saying the impression
Follow me on
was-
Twitter.
The impression of Dan was,
Please.
fair or not, that he was negative for Tennessee. The irony now is that, he's giving Tennessee positive publicity.
That's
ironic.
Well, and again, here's the thing. He started, the first text in that chain was, hey, great hire. Okay, we knew he'd liked Schiano before. We talked about that in the show. He's written about him possible. If you search Schiano and Wolken on Twitter, you'll see all the positives going way back. He sends him a note, great hire. Also, I think Mike Strange pointed out in between segments, clearly he's got a tie to Schiano. If he'd already heard, it's Schiano is the hire.
Yeah.
So he texts Curry. Curry says, yeah, man, we need the PR. Our people are wacko. Josh, you pointed out correctly. The next text under that was from a fan who was completely wrong on the Schiano deal. Said that Schiano ignored people who came asking, a victim who asked for help.
Yeah.
Which gets back to, well, that is
Yes.
wacko.
Yeah, that
You don't even have
that
the-
text was an example of what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe that triggered the comment.
Yeah, I mentioned to you
No,
earlier.
he came after
Yeah.
it, but he was getting tons of them before that.
Yeah, but I also don't know. I think it's part of it is it's a worse look maybe than what it is because
Yes.
I don't know that John Kerr replies, "We need the PR help." If he hadn't been told by Dan Wolken, I think that's a great hire. That probably influences John to say, "Oh, well, then we could use the good
Yeah.
PR."
If Wolken had said, that's a terrible hire, man, he would have probably said, well, we'll see. You know, rather than,
Yeah.
well, we could use some PR help.
yeah.
I don't think that.
Here's $50. Change your mind now.
Well, I'm just reading these people, and I don't want to be ugly, but
I didn't think it was on.
95% of the people that I'm seeing respond to him say, get out of the business. This is not, you're terrible. They're all under a certain age. They never went to J school. They don't have any, they didn't go to broadcast school. They just jumped in via Twitter and some small,
And painting the rock.
and painting the rock.
And that's what really got me.
If somebody in the New York Times, the ombudsman for USA Today, or somebody takes him to task for it, okay, that's a different beast. But if you're a fan and you're saying, well, this must mean, I don't think it does.
Well, also-
and again, I would just underline, if he had had a career of blasting Shiano and suddenly writes what he wrote that Monday,
Then,
I'd
yes.
be saying, shill, get out of the business. But
Yeah.
that isn't what he's been writing.
Yeah, Dan and the Tennessee fan base on Twitter also haven't had the greatest relationship before.
Who does have a great relationship with the Tennessee fan base on Twitter?